everyone. Thank you for being here and welcome to Sophomore Parent Night. As we do at Bellarmine, we are going to start off in a word of prayer. So if you can bow your heads, close your eyes. And maybe pause in place where you are in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We thank you for bringing us together this evening, united in a shared commitment to our students. We are grateful for our sophomores, for who they are becoming, for the gifts, talents, and potential you have placed within each of them. Grant us the wisdom as we guide them, the patience as they learn and grow, and the understanding as they discover their paths. Bless the conversations that will take place tonight. Help us work together to support our students academically, socially, and emotionally. We ask for your guidance over our school community. May our efforts always be rooted in compassion, encouragement, and hope for the future. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. All right, how are we feeling this evening? Yes, I love that energy. All right. We are excited to have you guys here tonight. I'm hopeful that you will get some great information to take with you back to your homes and to help you as you navigate these next steps with your sophomores. Quick agenda that you can see, and just a reminder, we are recording the presentation, so for those of you guys who like to write and take notes, feel free to do so, but you will also have this available to you in the next week or so, where you can go back and replay it for your own reference. So tonight we have a lovely guest speaker here tonight from PLU who will be going over the admissions process and where your sophomore should be paying attention to right now. We'll also talk about Naviance and how you can utilize that tool here for your student to explore colleges and prepare their strengths and personalities evaluations. We'll also talk about testing, scholarships, and then just where your sophomore should be right now, second semester. Just a little reminder about the mission of our counseling department. So we are here to provide support to you and your student. We are here as guides, we are here as mentors, we are here as coaches, we are here to provide support. But just a reminder that your student is the driver of this, okay? They are in the driver's seat, and so we can only offer the resources, make them accessible to them, but they really have to take a part of this path and journey and be the drivers in the seat. Okay, so like that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, you know. Okay, so we're also here to support you as the parent. So we want to work with you as you move from managers to consultants in helping your student through this process. Okay, so freshman, sophomore year, you guys are really supporting them and really hands-on. And we want to get to a place where junior or senior year, they're navigating this process and you are there as consultants helping them guide and make the best decisions for themselves. And then ultimately, we're helping our students find their best fit. So it's really not about a certain destination or a select school, but finding a school that's going to be the best suited for them. And then we are here for you for all your needs. So we are available to you. So please utilize us as a resource. Reach out if you have questions or concerns. And you can do that via phone, email, and we're happy to set up a meeting with you as well. And so this is just a little overview about where we want our students to be. This is a holistic approach. This could be a transformative experience, but students have to, again, access it and actually be a part of this experience. By the time they are graduating and walking across that stage, we want them to be leaders. We want them to be aware of their spiritual needs. We want them to be responsible, know how to access their physical and take care of their wellness. We want them to be ethical people, empathetic, culturally aware, ready for college, aware of their environment, intellectually and academically prepared, and then becoming people for others. This is the destination. That's where we want them to be. All right. So now to introduce to you for our college admissions section, I'm going to have an introduction of Hillary Powell, who is our Director of Undergrad Admissions at PLU. Okay. Welcome. Can we give her a round of applause?
Hi, good evening, everyone. How are you doing? Good. This is a full group. Congratulations, sophomore parents showing up. So as Ms. Wilson said, my name is Hillary Powell. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admission at PLU, and I am really excited to be here. I think there are things that we'll talk through in this section that you can really get started in thinking about in sophomore year that will help you in a really short 2 years when you are starting and kind of finishing up the application process and heading into the decision process that'll happen in spring of senior year. So this is with sophomores in mind and things you can kind of be starting to do now in partnership with the things that your counselors here at Bellarmine will have you do as well. So the biggest thing I think in sophomore year is to be able to explore colleges. This is the best time to do that. I always think summer and spring of sophomore year, summer after sophomore year is a great time to take the low-risk college tours. You're maybe not doing these college tours to find the exact fit for your student and to find the dream school. If that's the outcome that comes from it, awesome. But really what these should be doing is helping your student find the type of college they potentially want to go to. So I really encourage that chance to tour schools as you have that opportunity. Tour the local private institutions just down the road like PLU. Tour the public schools, tour UW-T, tour UW-Seattle, right? Being able to see the differences, an urban campus, a more traditional campus, a large school, a small school, a medium school, right? It is kind of a Goldilocks situation when you're going into this college tour. And what I will say is having those kind of local tour options close to home, again, maybe isn't where your student's gonna end up, but if you're going to be spending the time and effort to maybe go out of state somewhere or see different types of schools, having that kind of narrow down of, oh, we know we don't like the big schools, or oh, we know we don't like the small schools, those kind of feels are going to be at every school no matter the state based on the size. So having that chance in sophomore year and going into junior year to really do that research of the type of institution can then help in junior year when you're maybe going on more serious tours, or I know spring breaks, right, are that really popular time to take some college tours. I really encourage your student to think about who they are in the classroom in this experience, right? And this can help kind of decide what size of a college your student might be looking for. If your student is incredibly independent, they don't need to have their teachers help them or you help them, right, keep track of assignments or learning, and they're kind of able to self-direct in that way, then potentially being at a larger school where your classes are going to be more that, lecture hall style at those intro level classes might be great for your student. If your student really thrives in that environment where they get to talk to their teachers, where they get to have a collaborative learning experience, especially when they're learning new material, then potentially a smaller school might be a better option as they think about how they learn about those foundational skills. So having your student really start to think about that at this stage of the game can really help them in a year or two when they're trying to figure out what type of school they're going to be choosing. Another one is obviously what they hope for in goals, but I know goals change, right? Like what my goal was last month is not my same goal now. But what they hope or feel they want to achieve in life can help kind of drive that decision. If they have some desired major, we're not expecting them to declare their major on requests for information forms, right? That is not your chance where you're like going for your degree. But also, you probably already know some majors that are going to be totally wiped off the list. And so if you're looking at a school that like they're really strong programs and a lot of their students are in the majors that your student absolutely hates, something to consider as you're looking at colleges. The other thing that I would really encourage you all to do if you haven't already is really openly and honestly talk to your student about how you plan to pay for college. Is that a 529 plan that's already been set up for them? Is it going to be part of their responsibility to pay for college? Is it going to be through scholarships? What I will say is scholarships go a long way at a lot of schools, but very rarely are full tuition scholarships handed out at any institution. So I wouldn't be like having that be your plan A. Is it going to be thinking about taking out some sort of loan, or is it going to be kind of a mixture of both? But I think having that conversation now saves a lot of potential heartache later on, or helps them open the doors to true options in their college search process. I have a lot of conversations, especially this time of senior year with my students that I work with, where families weren't having that conversation openly, and we get to times where we're talking about a financial aid award, and we have to have some really tough discussions. I don't want any of you to be put in that position, right? So having that open conversation now can really help a couple years down the road. And then the ways to explore, we've already talked about tours. Bellarmine does an amazing job about inviting college counselors into the visits. So I highly encourage your students for the schools that they're considering to show up to those. As somebody like me, I'm the PLU rep also for Bellarmine, so I come and work with students who are interested in applying to PLU. And that's true for a lot of the college reps that come and visit. They're actually working with your student, and that can also help the students know more information, but also who their contact is at the universities that they're thinking about. What qualities matter to college? I am not going to go through this whole entire list one by one. You can kind of look at it, but I do want to call out a couple of things, and especially as you think about being a sophomore and being at this time of high school, ones that you still have quite a bit of control over, that potentially by the time you hit fall of senior year, or especially spring of senior year, that control is a little bit less. So one is academic achievement. If we think about what colleges look at in terms of college admission, academic achievement, no matter the school, is always going to be the largest piece of the pie. Now, how large it is depends on the institution, right? But it's always going to be the largest part. So if freshman year went well, we hope to see sophomore year go well. We hope to see junior year go well. And then if we ask for senior year grades, we hope to see that consistency. If sophomore year maybe isn't going as well as freshman year, or freshman year it was a tough transition into Bellarmine, and now they're kind of getting their feet under them, then we would hope to see that improvement as they're going throughout high school. One grade is generally, for a majority of colleges, not going to make or break an admission decision. Consistent grades is what makes or breaks an admission decision, right? So just know that academic achievement always going to be the biggest thing we're looking at. Another one is leadership. I think this sometimes gets tied to activities, right? You might have a student that is like so excited to join every single club and is already there and is off doing something every night. Awesome. You might also have a student who is like, you're like, please just join something. I want you to just do one thing, right? What we are looking for in the college kind of side of it isn't necessarily the student that's done everything. If they have, great, but what we would love to see is some leadership in any capacity. So oftentimes we are looking for depth of involvement, not necessarily breadth of involvement. So if you have that student that's just involved in one or two things, because that is what they get to do, have them really invest in that then during their time of college, and that is just as impressive to a school. And if you have a student who is involved in a lot of different things, encourage them to find the one or two, or maybe your student is a 3 or 4, right, thing that they want to take that leadership opportunity in, because that is the depth that the colleges will be looking for in the admission process. Another one is response to setbacks or resiliency. I think this really comes into play, and oftentimes, I know I talked about academic achievement, but the transcript tells a very clear story about a student's path throughout high school. And so being able to talk about that in the application process. So if maybe something is happening sophomore year that you know is gonna show up on the transcript, it's not bad just to make a note of it or write down what's going on now and hold it for later, right? But life moves fast, and hopefully we move past the things that were maybe holding a student back. But a college is just going to see kind of that thing on their transcript, and addressing that is not a bad thing and is often to the student's benefit. So we talked about the college reps coming to Bellarmine. Engaging with them is always important. Some schools will look at intended interest, or if you show up to visits, right, they take that into consideration for their admission processes. But it's also okay for them not to know what questions to ask. This is potentially where AI becomes a really nice tool for a student, is what questions do I ask a college rep from this college, right? have them that be a starting point. I know that I talk a lot with my admission counselors and with students as they're applying to college. Sometimes that blank page or that like, what questions do you have, is the worst question to be served, because you're like, I don't know what questions, I don't know, or I don't have. So being able to kind of do that work of having a question about the classroom experience, or having a question about if an activity is really important to a student, having those kind of geared up that you ask every college so that a student has that kind of in their back pocket and ready to go, can make those meetings feel a little less daunting. And as someone who has done hundreds of them, I can tell you when a student asks me a question, it makes it much more fun for me than just having me talk to them about my institution. And then, as I said before, a lot of times the counselors that are here at Bellarmine are the ones who are working with Bellarmine students and reading those applications, potentially making the admission decision. So if your student is available to show up to those visits and they're here, definitely encourage your students to go and start going to those as early as possible. Not sure what to ask kind of continued, but also encouraging sophomores to really think about going back to that types of school, right? You might have a student that already knows that they want to go to school in state. But if you're going on vacation somewhere and there's a college nearby, sign up and go on the tour, right? Being able to really know, like, oh, okay, I do want to stay more regionally close to my home, or I am the student that's like, please get me out of Washington State. Being able to really know that and start that process early can, again, kind of help later on. I do think the ability, if your student is thinking about going to a very different part of the country than the Northwest, having some extended time in that part of the country can be really valuable, right? The Northeast is very different than the Northwest, very different than the Southeast, and you're not just on the campus, you're a part of the culture of wherever you're going to live. And if it's incredibly different than our own, having some extended time there or having a full week to really kind of try to invest in much of the community as you can really help solidify a decision of yes or no for a student. So pretty much every college application is a treat for us to read. And it needs these things. It needs these 5 kind of things as a part of the application. Now, each school might do something a little bit differently. There's kind of an asterisk to college admission that all of us have something that's just a little bit different or a different requirement as a part of it. And it's because each of us are different schools, right? We're not all the same institution. If we were, that would be pretty boring and it wouldn't give your students much choice. So each of us requires something a little bit different, but all of them are kind of within this realm. So we need the transcript, recommendation, essay, the application itself, and your test scores. So T is for transcript. We already talked kind of about grade trends, so that upward grade trend, downward grade trend, static grade trends, right, are things that we look at in the admission process. So if a student hasn't looked at their transcript recently and kind of started to clock, am I going up, am I going down, am I staying kind of consistent, and how do I stay on the path, or ideally go up if you've started down, right, to get them where they need to be, and use this semester especially as maybe the kickstart to that change. Another one is rigor of coursework in senior year. Now, Bellarmine doesn't really let you get away with just taking all electives in your senior year, which is good. But I will say, for your students, encourage them to take an AP or a college and the high school course in their senior year, because I think it's really easy for students to get to senior year and be like, I just really want to be done. I don't want to have to challenge myself. And they forget that 3 months, sometimes 2 months, because Washington is late in graduations, right? You're starting college, and they are just going to expect you to pick up and go. So have at least 1 or 2 classes that are at that kind of college level, and the subjects that your students might be excited and ready for that challenge in those classes. Doesn't have to be every class unless, of course, that's your student and they just want to do that. Weighted or unweighted GPAs, colleges will decide for themselves whether they take weighted or unweighted GPAs. For example, PLU uses weighted GPAs, but we will weight every transcript that comes in. We don't use a school's weighted GPA to allow us to have kind of a consistent GPA across all of our applicant pool. Some schools will use the weighted GPA of this high school, some will just use the unweighted GPA. Those are great questions for your students to ask or for you to ask when you're on a college tour. And then you will have to submit a transcript of some sort, whether that's official or unofficial. Some schools allow you to self-report information. No matter what though, the institution that your student ends up choosing, you're gonna have to send a final high school transcript to, because we need confirmation that they've graduated from high school. Recommendations. This is one that I think is one just to kind of like hold information on, and for your student to really start to look at their teachers and supporters about who really knows them as a person and as a student, because that is really what we're looking for in a letter of recommendation. The counseling staff here does a wonderful job at the letters of recommendation, and that is oftentimes kind of the first one that we'll always get from a school. But a lot of schools potentially require 2 or 3 letters of recommendation. So your student will have to start asking others to write on their behalf. And those are things that they can potentially start thinking about now. I always recommend and kind of like to stick to a theme of having for sure the counseling one from a core teacher of some sort. So that would be like math, science, social sciences, English. And then it can be like a coach or a supporter or a mentor that can talk more about like character in that way. But those are kind of the 3 that you potentially should keep in the back of your mind. The essay. Now your student's not writing their college essay now unless they're like me and was like ready to get to college in 8th grade. But the essay, the things that I think you can really start to think about now, and this is potentially more for the parents in the room, is that the college essay is all about the student sharing a story about themselves. That can be a really tough ask in fall of senior year for a student to kind of be thinking about as they're starting this application process. So you as the parents and supporters potentially are going to be the kind of person that they're going to say like, I have this idea or this is that story. Is there anything that you can remember, right, that might support this idea? This is where your notes app is really great. This is where having a running Google Doc is really great. Of things that you're starting to see in your student, or maybe they're going through a time where they're showing resiliency right now or last year. And you just want to like hold that story so that they can then come back, or you can say, hey, you know, remember when you went through that time, or remember this really great moment that happened and kind of fits these themes that they're asking you to write on. So it's not necessarily about them writing the essay now, but I think this is the time where we start to kind of more or less stockpile the stories that are potentially going to be used in the college application process. And then the A is for application. This is the like name, personal information, parent information, resume of activities section. The resume of activities, this is another thing that you can start to just keep track of now. There very rarely is a college application out there or a scholarship application that isn't going to ask for a resume of activities. And there might be something that your student has done once, you know, every weekend, every other year that is still leadership, is still involvement, but it's kind of that one random thing. So starting that resume of activities now and just having it be a running document is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of brain space in 2 years when your student is filling out applications. The other things to consider is that each school does their application a little bit differently. A lot of us are on the common application, but more and more direct admission is becoming a really easy way for students to apply to a college that we know they're going to get in, and so why not tell them that early? So for example, here at Bellarmine, they have a lot of really amazing partnerships for guaranteed or automatic admission programs. One of them is with PLU. So for example, the way ours works is that if a student has a 3.3 GPA, have completed through Algebra 2, they're going to get an offer of admission from PLU to say like, hey, we know you're going to get in if you apply, so why not tell you you're going to get in? And sometimes that can also be the catalyst for your student to really know they're going to get into college, right? And they may be a little bit afraid, am I going to get in or not? So I know on the counseling website here, they have a list of all of their partners, but that's a really great one for you to know that those opportunities are coming down the line for your students. and that it isn't like a scam. These are actual real things. Niche direct admission is another one you might start to hear about more and more as it's gaining popularity. You don't necessarily worry about dates right now. You worry about that a little bit later, but I will say you should only have your student apply to one early decision school if they're going for early decision. That is a binding agreement. It's the only binding type agreement in an application process, and that would go to their top choice. And then test scores. Ms. Kane will do a great job about talking about these a little bit later on. Schools are changing, some are bringing it back, some are still saying no. So I don't think it hurts for your student to take the SAT or ACT at least once. I would also recommend they are different tests, so if your student has strengths in different areas, it might be worth it to look at both. We're a pretty SAT heavy state, we're a very college board state. If they're looking potentially East Coast or the Southeast, the ACT is a little bit more popular, so that's something to look at in terms of test taking. I will say test taking is a part of the pie, but again, not the largest part of the pie when we're looking at everything. Test taking oftentimes is more used as a supplement in review to see if things kind of match up. But there's always space in the college application for your student to bring their voice and their life into the process. And that's done through that kind of application section where you talk about additional information or community disruptions or things that were happening during the high school time. The one that I will say is AP scores. If they're taking those are ones that obviously are potentially starting this year. Maybe they started last year for your family. But you can start to send those scores early to schools. But you will want to send those if you're not automatically getting the college credit as a part of that. And then I think the biggest one, your student is going to get into college, right? And making sure that they are applying to a wide variety of colleges. The counseling staff here does an amazing job at making sure that is the case for your student and that they're setting themselves up for success in this process. But I think it's really just about doing that work early, using the things that you're learning tonight to really kind of kickstart that going into the spring and the summer. But a majority of colleges are accepting more than they're denying. And so just know that that is what a majority of us are doing. But if your student is like, well, I really want to get into the school that's only accepting 10% of their applicants, just make sure it's not all of those schools, right? Have a little bit of a mix as a part of it. And then here's my information. So I am always happy to be a resource on the college side, that if you are ever just wondering, hey, how does a college look at this? Or how does a college take into consideration this class or this thing? Please write down my information, shoot me an email. I'm happy just to be a voice on this side that can sometimes be very confusing and help make it hopefully less confusing for you and your family. But I will be around after this if you have some follow-up questions or specific wonders. But otherwise, it's going to be great. It's this exciting time. Even if your student maybe isn't as excited or you're not as excited, it's a really great experience, I think, overall. And our job on the college side is to help make it as great as possible. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to be talking about an overview of the process from sophomore year to senior year. So sophomore year, this is a pivotal year. This is when students really want to build a strong academic transcript. They want to choose rigor that works for them. It's good for students to have a healthy balance in their schedule. They should feel like they are challenging themselves, so this might be taking honors in classes that they are strong at, doing electives that they are interested in, and they will be meeting with their advisor coming up on February 24th and February 26th, and they will be going over their schedule for junior year. So this is also a good time to talk to your students and kind of get an idea of what classes they are thinking about taking. And then engagement in sophomore year is key. There's many ways for students to get engaged in our community. This could be doing campus activities, stepping up in leadership roles, helping out in ministry, joining Bellarmine sponsored groups, or doing a club. We actually offer 57 clubs on campus, so there is something for everyone. Students are also doing career and major exploration. They are working more in their naviance, which you'll learn more about naviance later, and becoming more familiar with the program. This is a time they utilize career interest assessments, and this is also a great time for them to start exploring colleges that might interest them. Then they will have their counselor meeting, which will be with their assigned counselor, so one of us. A little bit more about this meeting. This will happen after spring break, so also coming up. They will get a calendar scheduling link that will be sent from us, and this way they can choose a time that works with their schedule to meet with us. Parents are welcome to join, so if you want to join your student in that meeting, you are more than welcome to. And the purpose of the meeting is to help students plan for the next 2 years at Bellarmine, supporting them in academic success, personal growth, and post-high school goals. Okay, now moving on to junior year. This is the last year of grades on their transcript, so they are going to want to make this year really count. Students should still continue to engage in the community. This is a great time of doing summer internship or doing a study abroad. We have many study abroad opportunities, cultural, language immersion, and mission trips. This is when students are also starting the college process and visiting colleges, attending college fairs and information sessions, and going on college tours. And then kind of how Hillary was talking about, we have colleges come and visit our campus. So we have 80 to 100 college visits junior year. Students can sign up for those informational sessions. Those happen during the school day. So this really takes the stress off of students and parents. And then standardized tests, they will take their PSAT in the fall of junior year. And then they will take the SAT and or ACT in the spring of junior year. And then we also have boot camps, both in the fall and the spring, if they want extra support and getting tips and tricks for test taking. Also on our resource board, there is in my Bellarmine, under the testing tile, there is many resources on test taking. They will also have a junior counselor meeting, and that will happen in second semester. So all of us are starting to meet with juniors now, and we are really focusing on the college process and post-secondary plans. And then they will start their Common App and essay. So what's nice, the students will work on their essay second semester of junior year in the springtime. And then they can continue to work on that. And then the Common App they will work in summer going into senior year. And then senior year, this is the big year. So students will complete their Common App and essay. Students can test again if they want to, see if they can get their score up at all in the fall, and retake the SAT or ACT again. Students will finalize college list. We recommend that they have a list of 6 to 8 colleges, and one of those being an in-state school. We hope they have visited all their colleges they're applying to, whether in person or virtually. And seniors will be wanting to pay close attention to their deadlines, because all colleges, some have different deadline dates. And then they also will want to make sure that they have their application done, of course, and that they're reaching out to their teachers who are doing recommendation letters for them, that those are completed. And then they will get a counselor meeting as well. So this will happen 1 month prior to their earliest deadline. All applications and scores are sent by November 30th. And then lastly, students will be notified in December if they apply for early action, and then throughout spring on college decisions. And then May 1st is a very exciting day. That is the National College Decision Day. So students will choose their college on that day or before. And next will be Ms. Wilson.
Okay, how are we doing? We good? Yes, great. All right, show of hands if this is your first go around with the sophomore. Wow. Wow. All right. Well, good. Okay. So just take it all in. Okay. We've got you. We're here to support you. I know it's a lot of information, but we'll just take it step by step. So just to touch base a little bit more on your ideal fit. Hillary did a really good job of covering this. But this should be a list that you want to focus on. This will be your best way of helping your student kind of narrow it down to decide what do they want in their college experience. What's going to be the best path for them, and what school is going to be an ideal choice for them to consider. When you're thinking about this, we want students to think about academic programs, majors. And this is going a step beyond of just looking up the school and seeing if they offer that major, but going a little deeper and seeing how competitive that program is, if they have an additional application process, if there are courses that that student should take in order to be an ideal fit for that program. And then you want to think about likelihood the student will be accepted. Like Hillary said, you want to have a nice variety of schools. And so just a note to you that we do encourage our students to have a couple of reach schools, a couple of safety or target schools, and then a couple of maybe schools. And then we do require our students to at least apply to one in-state school, just because you never know what happens and you want to have that as an option. And then thinking about location, climate, size. This can be a deal breaker for some students. I know I had a senior one time who had an allergy to the sun. So that ruled out certain states. She was not going to Arizona, okay? That's something that you want to talk about and have considerations for. And then thinking about internship, research opportunities that that school may have. I know I attended a college tour at a school on the East Coast, and they had Bill Nye the Science Guy as the guest lecturer that night. Okay, that's pretty cool, all right? Your student may not be looking at a school that has that opportunity, but it's a good idea for them to still look at the offerings that that school has, all right? Check out the professors that they have in their specialties and see what kind of research opportunities that they might be able to participate into. Some schools have opportunities where sophomores can have access to that early on, and that's a good thing to consider. Also thinking about academic support services, if your student has different needs, asking those questions. Every school is going to have some kind of academic support, but the level and depth of which they offer those services is going to be different at each school. And then how are they managing academic rigor, the extracurricular activities and student clubs that they have. Schools are doing a really great job of having so many different offerings of this, but some schools are going to have more advanced offerings and some select ones too. And so this is a good idea for your students to think about too. Especially for our students who are athletes who want to continue that passion, seeing what kind of recreational sports and at what level they offer that at that school would be a good idea. I attended one school that had a rocket club. Okay, this is what students did in their free time and between time. They went and built rockets, all right? So that's kind of cool. So that might be something that stands out to your student. And then their graduation and retention rates. I remember a school not too long ago, I'll give them a little credit, but they were offering our students really good admission offers, really good merit offers to entice students to come. But when you dug a little deeper, you saw that students weren't graduating in 4 years, but it was taking them more like 6 years. Those are things you want to look at and look at those data points to kind of take those things in consideration, okay? And then also looking at affordable total costs, all right? Not just the price that's labeled, but what that total ticket price is going to look at with room and board, housing, all those things are going to come in to play. And so really looking at what that's going to look like feasible for your family. And then career placement assistance. How are they going to help your student after 4 years to help them get that career started or that job that they're looking for? And then really considering those schools that are really lesser known, okay? There are over 2,500 universities just here in the country. And so thinking about outside of those schools that are really popular or those well-known schools, but thinking about those little lesser known schools that might be a right fit for your student or a perfect gym that has the right program, the right fit, right cost that you have to consider. And so the one way to help you really navigate this, because we said there are so many schools to consider, and we don't all have them right in the top of our heads. We do a good job to try to keep ourselves abreast. But one way you can help yourself and do this research is the college tours. This is a website that has different free programs and classes that your student can take that you can participate along with them. That'll also help them narrow down that college fit question, and then we'll help them take it a step further to start exploring those schools. It really gives you a first-person preview of these schools and takes you at all the levels of exploring what that campus has to offer. And all the information that we're talking about tonight, these are things that we have shared with your sophomore during formation presentation. So this should not sound like brand new information when you come home talking about these things. And then just another reminder, like Hillary touched on, doing campus visits, getting out there right now, taking advantage of these 4-day breaks, 3-day holidays, spring break. Doesn't mean you have to book a ticket right now and jump on a plane, but really utilizing the schools that we have here at local access to us and the college tours that are available. We'll have some that you'll hear about later on that will be right here at campus. Great opportunity for students to check out lesser known schools, Jesuit schools, or just West Coast schools that they probably hadn't considered. All right, and so now I want to touch on and talk about Naviance. How many of you guys have heard about this thing called Naviance? Show of hands. Okay, great. So Naviance is our college search and exploration tool. Bellarmine has been utilizing this platform for a number of years, and so we've really gotten really great about utilizing it, highlighting certain features, and then it will also be available to help you with your student in their college search, exploration, and later on with their applications. We track those through this program. Families do have access to this program, so your students all have been assigned an account with a password and login information. But you, as the guardian parent, have access to that as well. So you can see everything that your student is doing in the program. It has different platforms and assessments where they can do strength assessments, personality assessments, and then also explore colleges as well. If you're interested in having a login, you would just go to the website, log in as a first-time user. We'll provide you with the access code, and then you will follow the steps to get logged on. And you would have your own login and password, but still be seeing the same account that your student has. And so just to take you through what we have shown your students thus far. We're going to go ahead and log in. And our demo student is going to be Marvelous, Marvy for short. And so when you log in, this is what you will see from your view. Okay, so we'll have your students name here, different navigational tools up at top. And so far we've had your student go on and create their profile. So from here they can see their homepage, lets them know information that we have in here thus far. And we've had them go in here and update that. You will not be surprised that a lot of your students do not know their home address, phone number, or where you went to college. And we're like, what's an alma mater? So we've had that conversation with them as well. We've also showed them how to build a resume. Naviance has a really great feature in here where you can start implementing that information that Hillary touched on right now. So we know that our students are participating in a lot of activities, engaging in a lot of things, and they can start building this resume now and tracking all that information. And then the great thing about this tool is that when they want to, they can go ahead and save it, and it becomes a formatted working resume that they can utilize with internships, jobs right now. Also, I want to show this self-discovery feature. This has the career interest profiler that I mentioned earlier, where they can take this assessment and it's going to highlight different careers based on their answers to the questions. And then it takes a little bit further, not only highlighting the different careers, but what salaries those careers will obtain, what education level you need for that career. It just kind of gives them a nice preview of what that would look like to obtain that job. And then there's also the strength assessment. And so if they take this will also highlight different strengths, personality, characteristics that will be good for your student to start identifying. And then another feature I want to highlight is our college lookup feature. This is also within the Naviance program. If I were to touch on Arizona State, for instance, it's going to take me to an overview of this school. And just from this page, you can see the acceptance rate, average net price, student retention, and their deadline. And one feature we like to highlight and show our students is the admissions feature. As they scroll down, like I said, Naviance has been participating in this program for a little over a decade. We keep all that information. We have students report to us so that we have that data for future students. So this is going to show you students who have applied to Arizona State over the last 7 years from Bellarmine. And it's going to give you some data points. This is just based off of GPA and test scores. But students have fun going on here and kind of highlighting and seeing what students got into, how they were accepted, if students were denied, what they were denied with, to give your student a good idea, just based on those 2 data points, of if this school is a reach school, safety school, or a target school for them. Okay. So this is a tool that I would encourage you to play around with, to help educate yourself, but also help your student create that best fit list for themselves. And then once they find a school that they like, they can scroll back up to the top, and then they can heart this as a favorite, and then it goes to the list of schools that they are interested in. And then they'll keep track of those schools as they continue on and get ready for their list that they are applying with junior year. Okay, so that's a little bit about Naviance. We wanted to highlight that and really encourage you to encourage your students to utilize that tool and then as well as yourselves. All right, thank you. I'm going to now welcome Mrs. Keating.
All right, we just got done talking about how helpful Naviance is with test scores and GPAs, so you can compare that data with other students applying to college. And now I'd like to further explore how the test scores factor into the landscape today for standardized testing. And I think the way that we looked at SAT and ACT in the past was very different than it is today. So how many of you guys grew up feeling like the SAT or the ACT was a determining factor for your admission to college? Oh yes, yes, we can relate to this. So that belief made sense then, but it's no longer telling the full story of the testing landscape today, okay? So take a deep breath, roll your shoulders back, because the stress is less, I promise, for most of us. How many of you, I'm just curious, if you could answer, you will have a first generation to college student this coming up, okay? So some of this stuff is completely entirely new to you, and I hope to bring you at ease and as we walk through this a little bit. Okay, so what colleges really use to measure readiness? When you look at this year's applicants this fall, 54% of the students chose to submit scores, and the other, less than half, did not. But the colleges were comfortable evaluating both groups, right? Of those that submitted test scores, we don't know this year's data, but looking back at 2024, we know that that group of students that submitted scores, half of them were accepted. Those that did not submit, half of them were accepted, right? So what that tells us is that the admissions truly take a holistic evaluation of our students. And the colleges are really asking, is this student prepared to succeed here? So they answer that question primarily by looking at the transcript, the coursework, the grades, the resume, right? Their involvement, how they present themselves in the essay, and if they submit a test score, it would be a factor. So if your student is a strong test taker, great. Those scores will help their application. And if they're not a strong test taker, that's okay too. We can still see a pathway forward for them. It doesn't disqualify them. A really helpful site that we like to refer to is fairtest.org. So we know that today, in this landscape, over 2,000 schools are test optional, right? Many students admitted every year without submitting a score. So there's approximately 4,000 schools in total, if you're curious about that. So there are some highly competitive schools that do require test scores, but that's more about 5% of the schools. So our goal here is to help each student decide whether testing adds value to their application. And we can have those conversations individually with you and your student as we go through that process later to make that decision. So test optional doesn't mean that they don't matter. I want to be clear about that. It just means that they get to choose whether the score will support their application. So this slide, our timeline here, please just use it as a general guideline and a roadmap, but not necessarily a requirement list. So for students who plan to test, these are the typical steps, and we're gonna time it so that it brings ease, less stress. We're gonna start in the fall with another PSAT in October for your students. This will be the second time gaining familiarity with this digital test now, which I know I saw the hands go up. You remember the pencil and paper. We've got a much different version now. It's not the 3 hours, it's down to 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's all digital on their iPad, so it's a lot faster process, easier. They're gaining familiarity, which helps lower the stress. We're gonna study and prep again, and then in the spring, Bellarmine's gonna offer an in-school SAT to the juniors. So I would highly recommend all the students take it. I know we're saying it's a test optional landscape in general. We all don't know what our plans will hold down the line. And I can tell you right now, if you were fast forwarding into the future, you had a junior, and you're looking at all of a sudden a change in your student's college list, and now it includes a school that is test preferred, then you're looking for a test site, right? You get online, 0 options at this point in the year because they're all full. I tried to find one recently and it looked like I had to drive over 80 miles. So we have some parents who are willing to go to the extra measure, drive or fly to a new location so that their students can test. I don't want you to be in that situation. Let's all encourage the students just to take advantage of this one here at school, so they have that in their back pocket for consideration. And then, if that score doesn't hold up to what they expect or what they need for a certain college that they're looking at, they have the opportunity to study some more and then retest. So we can look at that. The last opportunity they would have to retest at school would be the fall of their senior year. So, what you can definitely gather here is that we are planning ahead. We're being intentional so that it doesn't increase anxiety as your student goes through this process, right? The key is to prepare and prep so that there's less pressure. And then many colleges are going to super score. Has anyone heard of that term? Super scoring? A handful? Okay. So what that means is that students don't need a perfect score on one given test date. They can test multiple times, and then the score from one subset on any given test date could be joined with another subset score on a different day, and that would become a super score. And then you might be asking, well, how will I know if my student has a good score? And I have to tell you, there is no national cutoff score. This is all in context, and it varies from school to school. It also will need to be in consideration of the rest of your students' information, their GPA, and all the good things that we talked about that go into play. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have been able to meet the deadlines for the application process that your student applies to. So we're getting all the scores, all the testing done sooner than later. All right. Hopefully that brings a little bit of ease. We're here after if you have other questions, and again, we'll continue this training as we go on to other parent nights. Ms. Ford.
Okay, less specifically college-oriented, but still with the lens of thinking about preparing your students for exploring what they might want to do after they leave Bellarmine. One of the ways that we're trying to support students in that work is through what we're trying to identify as 7 career pathways. You can see all of them up here on this beautiful graphic. This is about course selection, electives, and co-curricular experiences that all are kind of aligned in helping students explore a particular interest. Pathways are flexible and interdisciplinary. So what we're hoping that students can do is see that there might be interests that they have that are intersections of different areas. For example, like healthcare and ethics, or business and social impact. At this stage, sophomore year, looking ahead, like Maddie said, to course selection, what we're thinking about is trying to have students make connections among things that they're interested in, things that they're good at, and things that they might want to explore further in terms of career that might lead them to different choices for their post-Bellarmine planning. So, intentional choices now can lead to more flexibility later. And you, parents and guardians, play an important role here. I would love conversations around course selection to begin with what was most exciting for you freshman year? What did you enjoy taking first semester? And then that follow-up question, the key follow-up question, why? I think we miss that sometimes at Bellarmine, particularly when we're trying to have our students, they have this pressure to achieve or to take the honors classes or all the AP classes. Why are we making those choices? What about those things is exciting to you? And if the only reason is a college admissions decision, that's not a good enough reason, right? And it's your job to help us help them make those kinds of decisions and see a little bit beyond that 16-year-old brain. That make sense? Okay. I'll do what I do with the students and with my kids. Get it? Good. Okay. So one of the best ways to explore these career pathways is outside of the classroom. So I want to talk a little bit about those intentional choices with summer. What does being intentional mean? It does not mean filling every week of the summer. It means choosing 1 or 2 purposeful experiences that can help students learn more about themselves. So summer is a kind of hopefully a more low stakes time to explore, and that exploration can then directly support the decisions they're going to make next year as juniors. To get a little more into detail about some of the options, we would encourage you to talk through with your students, exploring job shadowing and internships. For sophomores, I would say job shadowing is a perfect kind of starting point. Spending even a day or 2 observing a professional can help our students understand what a job actually looks like. I have so many students that come in and say, I want to go into healthcare, I want to be an engineer, or I want to major in business. and they don't know what that actual day in the life looks like. We have an internship program here that we're just piloting last year and this year that we're hoping to be able to help students answer those questions, but really using your family connections, talking to local businesses. If you get PT somewhere and your kid might be interested in a career in healthcare, talk to your physical therapist. Hey, can my kid come observe you for a day? All of those kinds of things are great ways for our students to get exposed to careers without a big commitment. Research opportunities. So research opportunities, I want to make sure we're understanding they're not just for students that know they want to pursue science or medicine. Right? Research builds transferable skills like critical thinking, problem solving, and communication. And there are a lot of university programs, summer programs. So if you search UW pre-college or UW-T pre-college program, or Notre Dame has a wonderful pre-college program if you're wanting your student to travel and get a little bit of a college campus experience. A lot of schools have these pre-college or summer programs for high school students that might be an opportunity for them to explore both a career interest and a campus experience. Service, right? We want our students to be of service, but service is meaningful when it's consistent and purposeful rather than one time or short term. So we encourage students to look for opportunities where they can engage regularly and feel connected to the work that they're doing. Service can often help our students clarify their values and interests and can spark curiosity about different fields, education, healthcare, social services, advocacy, those kinds of things as well. Okay, traveling with purpose, right? Purposeful travel, whether it's national or local or international, can help students build independence, adaptability, and cultural awareness. I have listed on our slide some of the programs we've had students work with in the past, or programs that we offer trips in partnership with, such as Sports for Kids or language and cultural immersion programs. And there's a look ahead there, the Rome Sister School Exchange and the London Theater Trip, those are all coming up for students, and the applications will be available coming up, I think, in the fall. Programs can open students' eyes to things they might not have been aware of inside of themselves in terms of things that they are excited about and skills that they have. So it's all about encouraging that personal development. And a last note before I transfer over to Chris is that all of these experiences give students more clarity and more opportunities to build skills. Ideally, they can help students become more confident in their choices and the choices they're going to make after Bellarmine. So that's one of those reasons that we encourage any of these ideas in terms of summer and academic exploration for your students as they continue on here at Bellarmine. All right, Chris, you're up.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the athletic military ROTC opportunities. Raise of hands who has a student that's interested in playing sports in college. Wow. Okay, great. So what we recommend is that if you haven't done so already, we do have some freshmen that are already signed up under NCAA Eligibility Center, but there's a cost to it. I think now it's about $100, but that just helps once they're signed up for the Eligibility Center, that we could submit transcripts so they're current. We also suggest that sometimes it's helpful when students will set up a profile. A lot of colleges now are looking for, or athletic coaches are looking for tapes. So Huddle is what we use here, is the program we use here. They're taping games. Basketball team uses that, football team uses that, soccer does as well. Creating a social media profile that captures a student's athleticism. Now there's, I won't go into too much detail, but a lot of coaches are open to using social media now. X, Twitter is a big platform now that we use, Instagram as well. So the other thing is summer camps. There's lots of opportunities to sign up for summer camps. There's tons of websites that kind of promote college camps for football, soccer, basketball, you name it. For us, we would recommend that students get a release form that they can have you and the student and the parent sign. Once students are 18, they won't have to do that, but for soccer students, most likely they'll have a student signature, a parent signature as well. And reach out. So students should kind of take initiative too. Now there's rule once sophomores are into the summer time, they become a rising junior, then the rules change. So a lot of times students will start contacting coaches. I always suggest that they do so with the assistant coaches that are in charge of the recruiting process or recruiting students. So it's a different environment now entirely. So there's a lot of things that students can do to kind of maybe have an edge, especially on exposure. A lot of coaches can't visit sometimes, so with our technology and everything, social media, it's you're really at the advantage of taking the opportunity to let be seen. As we know, it's kind of a real competitive time now. I played soccer in college and it was much different. So there's more players now, there's more competition, so it can be overwhelming and it can be expensive. So I always try to help. I think we try to advise students like it doesn't have to be expensive in order to be really helpful and help with promoting yourself. Okay, so we're going to have we do this every year. I host an event for ROTC and military academies. We usually do it right upstairs here in St. Leo's, the conference room on top. It really begins, the application begins junior year, okay? But we have sophomores and juniors attend. They're open to attend. I'm really excited to host this year because we're going to have 3 different reps from ROTC. John Gobea from PLU, he comes every year. He's a wealth of information. And he represents more the ROTC Army, but he gives advice for all ROTC, Air Force, and the Navy ROTC. This year, I'm really excited to have 2 other reps. One is going to be representing the Navy ROTC from the Seattle branch. It's a Chief Rowe. It's a Chief Jacob Rowe. And so he is his title, I wanted to share with you guys here. Chief Rowe is a scholarship coordinator for the Pacific Northwest. For the Air Force ROTC, we're going to have a special guest, Second Lieutenant Rhiannon O'Keefe. So Rhiannon graduated top in her class in linguistics from Stanford University. So she's like 23, 24 years old, really excited to meet with the students. She's a scholarship and admissions advisor over at Joint Base Lewis McChord. And she's super excited to talk. And I want, we don't have a lot of females that come to the event. And I want to really promote that. I want her to come out, and she's really excited to talk to a lot of gals to see if they're interested. I have some that are interested just from my side with the academies, but this will be a great event for them to see. In addition to that, we're going to have what we've had for the past few years too is U.S. Air Force Academy, Chris Rosati, who's a major. He was a pilot. He's a current pilot now, and so he'll be there. He's already helped one of our seniors that just had a nomination for the U.S. Air Force Academy. We're proud to say. And then our representative from West Point, is Colonel Tad Tsuneyoshi. So he has a student that just graduated here last year, Cal, and he's at West Point himself. So a lot of these meetings are really just fantastic for students to see, even if they don't go into it. For them to see that, they kind of get some great information and come away with telling other people. We always usually every year we have a bigger show. So that's going to be, by the way, that's going to be March 31st. We'll have plenty of time to get ready for this. If your student is interested, and want some information beforehand, feel free to have them come see me. But we're gonna post this, and again, we have plenty of time. It's usually right before the spring break. So March 31st is going to be during second lunch, and what we usually do is we host an event. There's tons of questions, lots of interest, and we kind of just wait around. We kind of go into the next class period, but it's usually just lots of questions and some really good Q&A that goes on. Okay, so we're going to recap here. As everybody talked about, we're going to continue to build a strong academic record. I think it's important that the students do that. Find successful balance of rigor in classes. So looking at, if students are interested in the AP classes or honors classes, or not. Sometimes that balance is, looking at it beforehand and saying, you know what, I'm not going to take an AP class in this because I'm going to go into this as my major. So balancing is really important for us. Pursuing interest in serving others. I think the interest in things that are authentic to you. We try to tell students, don't try to just get into something that you can add to the list. You want to do it authentically and something that you've always been doing and being part of. Exploring colleges, attending college fairs, visiting campuses. We're going to have an event here. We're going to have the Aero event right inside here. What we try to tell students is when you come to these events, dress properly. Also, even if you're not going to be thinking that's one of your priority schools, go and talk to the reps. Get some flyers. Learn about where it's at. I think that's really a good trend to set. So, when we have these things, you never know when something is going to be engaging for you. It's not saying, a lot of times it's like, don't just be discouraged by some of the college that you see and just kind of walk away. No, talk to the reps. It's good practice in general. Not this year, but next year, we're going to have a jet tour. That's when our Jesuit schools are here. Another time to kind of engage with, admissions reps and see, where are these different schools at? Just get a good vibe with what, college admissions is all about. And then lastly, test prep, testing, application, and essay. That's going to begin next year. So I'm hoping that everybody's excited about that. I know I am. Okay, so thank you for attending the sophomore parent event. If you wouldn't mind, I think they could do the QR code right up here. And our presentation materials are going to be available on our counseling tile in My Bellarmine. That's a wonderful resource for everyone to use. And then we're going to see you guys again, junior parent night, rising senior parent night, and then senior college night. So we're looking forward to that. Yes. And so thank you so much for coming, guys. We're going to be up here if you have any additional questions. Okay?
Yeah, if there are any questions for the general audience that you guys would like to ask, we're here if you want to open the floor up. That means we did our job. We were so thorough. Yay! Oh, one question.
Class that's coming up. As a sophomore, it sounds like that's not a big priority right now. We have an opportunity as a teacher to take that SAT prep class.
There are some who might want to take advantage advantage as a sophomore for the Tutors Across America Boot Camp or some other form of test prep in preparation of the next PSAT. There is a National Merit Scholarship available to those who take the PSAT and score very high, but let's be honest, most of us don't have that top 1% child. So those odds are pretty low. The Tutors Across America test prepping is, I would say, not a deep dive. So if you wanted to jump on that, it would give your student the opportunity to have familiarity with the ACT as well, since we just do the PSAT. They would get familiarity with both tests, because they're going to take half of each of those tests on Friday, and then Saturday, all day, they're prepping with little tips and tricks and insider things to help them improve. And then they'll get additional tricks and tips on Sunday morning. But then they follow that with the other half of the SAT and ACT to see how they performed after knowing all the tips and tricks. So then you could proceed and go deeper after you know which tests they do better on. Students generally score 25% better on one than the other. So you may want a deeper dive, and maybe there's a small group tutoring option, which would be lesser of a price than individual. But I do support the boot camp, but you may want to wait, is what I'm suggesting, unless you're really proactive again and wanting to be aggressive on that. So test prep is available for a range of prices and lots of different modalities. So it's really what your learner would do best with. Any other questions? Okay, we'll be up here if you care to talk to us individually.